Welcome, Adam, and thank you for coming in. So to introduce you, Adam Walker, candidate for the New Democratic Party in the upcoming provincial election to be held on October 24th, and serving the riding of Parksville-Qualicum Beach, which is, of course, the riding where the Parksville District and Qualicum Beach Chambers of Commerce do their darndest to help business be successful by creating a great environment through the development of policy that gets taken forward on an annual basis. And we've selected a number of policy pieces to discuss with all of the candidates, just so we can let our members make a really, really good decision about how they want to, where they want to cast their ballot. You've had an opportunity to review the pieces that I sent out. Sorry that it was such short notice, but this is an election and everything is short notice. Let's start with some social issues. British Columbia is experiencing a mental health and addiction crisis. Here in Parksville, we've seen an increase in homelessness. Across the province, we're hearing about the huge increase in opioid overdoses. Tell me what a New Democratic government is going to do to mitigate these impacts on business in particular.
Certainly. No, thank you, Kim. And the package you sent me was definitely thorough, so it was great having the background information. This isn't an issue that it affects all of us. Dependence issues and mental health issues are something that many of us have loved ones that suffer with this. And homelessness is something that is very visible in all of our communities. Even in Qualicum Beach, where I'm a councillor, it's something that we struggle with even in our town. So the BC NDP has a strong plan and a good track record over the last 3 years in government when it comes to these issues. We saw recently in Nanaimo with the tent city the impact that was having with downtown Nanaimo, and the investments made by the BC NDP in that community have really done a lot to bring these people into safe and supportive housing and moving them on to the next steps. There's definitely been issues, there's definitely been problems, and there's definitely more we can do, but we can see the success of that in we walk the streets in Nanaimo. One of the and some from the BC NDP platform here, we've got over the next 10 years, we're committing to 5,000 supportive housing units across our province that will assist people who are transitioning from living rough back into society with the support they need to get their life back on track. Within that, we also are committed to 10 new comprehensive complex care homes for the people who require additional assistance that supportive housing won't work with. We're committed to 2,000 new rent supplements. I'm checking my notes here so I get the numbers right. And that's important. When people are in supportive housing, the idea with this is it's a transition from living rough to getting the supports they need to become productive members of society again. And so those 2,000 rental housing supplements or new rent supplements are intended to connect these people in supportive housing with support workers and to get them back into market rental circumstances, freeing up those supportive housing spaces. We've got 800 new treatment beds that are on progress, which will have huge impacts both through detox as well as through the recovery process. And for me, in a local government level, something that I'm excited about is $100 million invested in communities. So within the town of Qualicum Beach, our impact is small relative to larger centers, but a lot of these issues have been downloaded on local governments, and so this $100 million is to help assist bylaw enforcement and just keeping streets safe. So that's an important initiative that I'm proud as a part of our platform.
Thank you. So the other end of the spectrum, of course, is more market housing, and one component of that market housing is the strata market. And stratas have been hit hard by the massive increase in insurance rates. So tell me what an NDP government would do in terms of helping those folks when we have a lot of stratas in our community. How will you put forward the message to get those insurance rates down?
Yeah, definitely, and it's something we see in the news news and we think it's a Vancouver problem, but it really affects all of us. The most affordable housing that we can create in our communities are multifamily homes. It's an efficient use of land, and when we see these insurance rates going up, it creates significant challenges to ensuring that this type of housing remains affordable. The stories, and I believe in your background, mentioned one strata association that their rates went up 700%, and that's an unusually high number. But we're still seeing, tripling and quadrupling of rates, and it's a challenge, and it's difficult. The BC NDP has already, as of the spring, made efforts to try to increase transparency in this market. So any of the referral fees and kickbacks are no longer permitted. Any of the commissions in excess of 20% must be disclosed, and so those are efforts that are being made to try to add some transparency to the cost structure. But the entire process has been sent for investigation to the BC. I apologize. I have
you
to
just
get
go
my
ahead
notes.
and you can't remember everything.
It's the BC Financial Services Authority. People who work for these organizations don't like it when the name's not right. So, but yeah, it's been referred to them for investigation and recommendations, and the BC NDP is committed to following through with the recommendations that come from that process. The other thing that the NDP is committed to, if it gets to the point where there is no solution by the end of 2021, the provincial government, through the BC NDP, has committed to stepping forward and creating a public insurance for strata corporations to ensure that this type of housing is sustainable and affordable on an ongoing basis.
Interesting. Okay. More topics on housing and how it relates to workforce housing in particular is the Bill 52, which was brought in by the NDP and really impacted farmers in terms of what they're allowed to do on their land, including the provision of housing and for families and for their workers. Any movement on that from your perspective? Is there a way that we can mitigate the impact on farmers?
Well, I have a small farm, so this affected me directly. We were looking originally at on-site housing for a worker, and at one point when my grandmother was looking for a smaller space, we were looking. Previously, you were allowed to have people within your same family living on the same property. The provincial government is working towards doing whatever we can to support business and farm activities to ensure the sustainability of farms. But what's important is the reason the ALR exists is to preserve farmland. Mm-hmm. And so that has been a huge success since 1973. That land has been made available for not only farming now, but for future generations. And as we go through this pandemic, it's more important than ever to not only know where our food comes from, but to know that it's available. So it's a balance, and it's a difficult balance sometimes, because there are businesses that have a great business plan on paper, but when they go to the ALC and make the application, the ALC may say it doesn't fit with what their vision is for farming in general. So it is a give and a take, and I know that there are efforts being made to streamline and modernize that process. But at the end of the day, it's about preserving that farmland for future generations and for food security for us in British Columbia.
So if those future generations don't have a place to live, how are we helping them?
And as a housing situation, the primary goal of the ALC and the ALR is farming, and housing is definitely becoming more expensive. Land is more scarce, but it's important that the ALR and the ALC, the commission that regulates agricultural land, focus specifically on food security and on future viability of farming. The rules that we have across our province are across the province, and so they have to work with what's going on in Richmond. They have to go with what's working in the interior and on the island. And so there are challenges as far as housing. But I personally believe, and the NDP, it was an NDP government that brought in ALR, that it's important that we preserve that land for future generations for farming.
Yeah, we, as an organization, we certainly concur that it's important to preserve that land. I guess that we just want to make sure that farming is a business.
Yeah.
Agriculture, agritourism, all of those things are have huge economic impacts. And you just mentioned, Richmond, the interior, and the island. How do we create one piece of legislation that looks after the very distinct and individual characteristics of each of those regions that you just talked about?
Well, we have that to a certain extent. The commissions are broken down regionally, and so when you make an application to the ALC, you're actually dealing with your regional body. So there is some of that exists already. I think the challenge is that there are people who own ALR land that are hoping that the rules will be relaxed for development, and that's not what it's for. Mm-hmm. And so it's important that distinction's made. If you have a viable business plan that requires both farming activities and business activities on the same property, work with the ALC. That's what they're there for. There are exemptions that are available, and we've heard stories of local businesses that have had challenges with that. But it's about working with the ALC, with your MLA, and just moving forward and finding those compromises to make it so that it's a viable operation.
Thank you. So, moving on to other types of housing issues, there was a very significant policy piece that I provided you with regard to how we just create that large continuum of space available so that we can have a real viable workforce. We did a quick survey a couple of summers ago about our labor market. Housing would leapt to the forefront as something that's been a problem. Tell me what you read in there. Tell me how you feel about it, and tell me how we can expect you to implement those recommendations.
So is this within the ALR tourism one?
No, this is within the Progressive Solutions to Improve the Availability of Workforce Housing, a title twice as long as the policy.
I'm just going through the list here, and I'm not sure which one that's referencing, so I apologize for that.
So we talked about decreasing development costs.
Okay.
We talked about creating residential rental tenure zoning. We talked about a number of different issues that would allow us to create better housing, more workforce housing, particularly for low-income families.
Yeah, and I think that's important from a local government perspective. Sorry, the order of these moved around a bit here, so and I may not be speaking directly to the notes you had, but the BC NDP government is committed to affordable housing, and there are a lot of initiatives that are underway right now, but they require partnerships between local government and provincial investments, and I'm proud of the work that's being done right now through both CMHC and BC Housing as far as creating a fund to fund affordable rental housing, and then through BC Housing to create this both affordable housing but also the supportive housing in our communities.
Thank you, Adam. And thank you so much for coming in. We wish you all the best on the 24th, and look forward to talking to you again in whatever capacity, whether as our MLA or as a city councillor in Qualicum Beach.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks very much.